Hello everyone, this is jamie14. Today we're doing something a little different. Part 7 came out yesterday and part 8 is, I'm taking a hiatus at the moment. But today we're going to be ranking the Pixar villains from least evil to most evil. So this is based on what their personalities are. So first off, we need to establish some rules. Um, so the first rule is that I'll be focusing on only the main antagonists of each film, only very few secondaries. This doesn't count Zurg, because when Pixar's upcoming Lightyear comes, then he will be counted. Because he didn't affect the plot of Toy Story 2 that much. And I must have you know that not every Pixar film has an antagonist. Inside Out and Finding Dory don't exactly, and Onward doesn't exactly have one either. The Cursed Dragon isn't necessarily a villain, and I must have you know that the villains from Soul and Luca are not going to be included because Soul and Luca were made exclusively to Disney Plus, and this is only for cinematic ones. Okay, so let's begin. And I must have you know that these ones, the least evils, are not exactly bad. So beginning with the not bad side is Dr. Sherman, the villain from Finding Nemo, and the dentist. Well, we could say that he's not exactly a villain because um, he was, and if you have seen Finding Nemo, he was the guy that thought that Nemo was struggling for his life outside in the sea, and he basically brought him back to his niece Darla Sherman, who some consider to be the villain instead of Dr. Sherman, but just like others, I consider Dr. Sherman the villain. Um, and he handed over to his niece, and all his niece does is just, well, torture and kill the fish, poor fish. But you could say that Dr. Sherman is just trying to be a nice uncle. We could, we could argue that. So yeah, Dr. Sherman is the least evil. The second least evil is the original Pixar villain, Sid Phillips from Toy Story 1. Um, so, yeah, when I was very young and seeing the first one, I thought that he was a pretty bad person, but now I get it why people say he's one of the lessers. Um, because it's apparent that Sid Phillips has a messy life at home back in these days, which was the cause of him to cause all these tortured toys and violent fantasies with his toys, and why he stole Woody and Buzz from in that Pizza Planet space area. Um, it's probably because his father might be abusive and he's probably the victim towards it, whose Satan with toys is just anger relief. Because other than having violent fantasies, he also has anger issues, he bullies around his sister, and doesn't seem to have any regard for public property. Yeah, gotta feel for the guy, giving, possibly if his father was like that, and torturing toys without realising or even noticing they were sentient. But in the third one, he changed his ways after Woody came alive in his face. So yeah, Sid Phillips is the second least evil. The third least evil is Johnny Worthington, the leader of Team Roar Omega Roar for Monsters University. And he was alright, yeah. So Johnny Worthington was a stereotypical bully character who mainly ended up making a fool of Team Ooze Macappa, which was Mike and Sully and their pals. So this basically takes place before the events of Monsters Inc. We'll get to those ones later. Johnny Worthington, yeah, he wasn't exactly a bad guy. He was just a jerk. Yeah, that was pretty much that. So yeah, Johnny Worthington isn't exactly a bad guy. Yeah, he was just a dirty cheater. He's like um Randall or Chick Hicks again, but in his own way compared to them. So yeah, he's the third least evil. Now, what I consider to be the last of the not bads or evils at all is Gabby from Toy Story 4, the latest one on this list. Basically, wants to be loved by a child, given that Harmony rejected her and wanted Woody's voice box. If you have seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Gabby may seem like a nice person at starters, but don't argue because Gabby is manipulative. Um, but out of all the villains in this that turn out bad, she's the only one that turns truly good by the end by comforting a lost little girl and getting what she wants. So, yeah, and wanted to exchange with his voice box, but after turning quite good, ended up realizing all that. So yeah, Gabby is the fourth least evil. Now on to some bad guys. So the first of the bad is Jackson Storm from Cars 3. And yeah, it was a good movie. And Jackson Storm isn't exactly that bad because he basically got very fast. That Lightning McQueen wanted to be as fast as him, but he couldn't because he was weak compared to Jackson Storm's new coming of age style of race cars. It's coming of age basically, um and he caused Lightning McQueen to crash and burn up, that he ended up retiring and gave Cruz the chance, and in the end he won, but that was still possibly meaning that Jackson Storm's style of race cars would still stick around for the rest of racing history. So Jackson Storm is bad of when it comes to evil. The next villain is Chick Hicks, the other race car of the Cars series. And Chick Hicks isn't exactly that bad. He was just a dirty cheater in the races. He's been cheating and caused a massive collision and caused Lightning McQueen to spin out. But then um, he he won in the final race of Cars 1, and then but Lightning McQueen helped the king get back on. So that, but you need to know from that statement there that racing isn't just everything in the life. Racing isn't everything, because winning isn't everything either. Yeah, it's coming of age basically. So Chick Hicks in Cars 3 turns out good eventually. Um, so yeah, Chick Hicks is his personality bad because he is a cheater. Next is Thunderclap, the carnivore from The Good Dinosaur, and yeah, this villain is like he wanted to eat the main characters Arlo and Spot, basically, from what I heard, and um he wanted to eat them, but eating them and ripping animals apart isn't really bad at all, because animals dying, getting eaten, that's just nature. It's how it works. It's that simple. And Thunderclap, he's like, you can call me Thunderclap. So yeah, he is bad when it comes to morality. Next is the Axiom controller, Otto from Wally. Yeah, as much as this villain, but out of all the villains in the Pixar canon, I think that he's the most powerful because he can control the ship, and he came close to killing Wally by crushing him, but he didn't. He tried to crush Wally and kill him, but Wally got deactivated, which he then got activated again, but Otto got permanently deactivated after a fight with the captain of the Axiom. So yeah, Otto is the one who runs humanity, and after the news of his death, it's apparent that everyone can return to Earth. The next villain is Al McQuiggin from Toy Story 2, the first of the two secondary villains. So Al McQuiggin, if you have seen Toy Story 2, he was the guy that stole Woody so that he could complete his Woody's Roundup collection. And this villain, um, he he literally has the pretty much the same morality spectrum as P.T. Freer from Bugs Life. We'll get to the Bugs Life villain later. Main moral is to make money, and greed is only into money and greed, so he treats others like garbage, piles of crap. Um, and yeah, stole Woody and all that. If we can say anything nice about him, he's got a pretty catchy commercial slogan, but that's pretty much it. Now we're in very bad. So the first of the very bads is Chef Skinner from Ratatouille. He's basically Pixar's Gordon Ramsay, but doesn't swear because Pixar doesn't have any swearing in it, because it wouldn't be. If it did, then I wouldn't have. Then I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't have grown up with Toy Story or Monsters Inc. or Cars or Bugs Life or all that other stuff. So he basically rules the dining room like a dictator, and he's always harassing his employees and basically disrespecting what Gitu what was his name again? I can't remember, but he basically tried to kill Remy by running him over, and then when he got in, who cooked the ratatouille? I demand to know. Then all the rats saw him, and then they just tied him up and left him in the closet, and that was pretty funny. So Chef Skinner is not evil, but still very bad. Next is Stinky Pete, the main villain of Toy Story 2. So at first he may seem like a nice person, a mediator between Woody and Jessie, but later shows out his true colours, and his true colours is that he hates space toys for what they did to the Woody's Roundup franchise. They made it die off because once the astronauts were up, children only wanted to play with space toys, as Stinky Pete stated. And you gotta feel for the guy, because if Woody hadn't said that he was going with the gang back to Andy, then Stinky Pete may not have shown his true colours, and he basically wanted Woody to stay to Japan and stay there for good in the museum, and he even threatened to tear Woody to bits with his axe. And Lotso didn't make a threat like that. We'll get to Lotso later. Yes, so Stinky Pete is very bad when it comes to morality. I really enjoy this guy. I really do. So yeah, now let's get to the top 10 most evil Pixar villains. So next on our list is the last of the ones I consider to not be evil, Henry J. Waternoose the third from Monsters Inc. At first he may seem like a random guy that runs Monsters Inc. as a business, but later he shows his true colours, and that is basically that he's working with the actual main villain of the movie, Randall Boggs, to kidnap children and make the company go corrupt, and threaten to destroy the company and let it die and kidnap all these children. I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die, and I'll silence anyone who gets in my way, as Waternoose stated. and then after the CEO hears the thing of it that Mike recorded, he gets arrested. Um, so yeah, it's been in his life for 3 generations, which is why the third. There must be a Henry J. Waternoose the first and Henry J. Waternoose the second before this one. And Henry J. Waternoose the fourth? I don't know. Next we have evil. So the first of our evils is Randall Boggs from Monsters Inc. In Monsters University, we see the nice side of him, but he was nice in Monsters University at the start of that when he and Mike were pals. But then after that, in a competition with Uzma Kappa versus Mega Roar, um, he gets something embarrassing going on with him, and he loses, and he's like, "That's the last time I lose to you, Sullivan." And then in Monsters Inc., we see the more violent side of him, and he had done many things for violence. He was cheating, causing Boo to run to the monster world. If the crisis hadn't been going on, the crisis shouldn't be going on if it weren't for Randall. For violence, he tried to break Mike's arms, tried to kill him with the stream extractor, tried to kill Sully by choking him, tried to kill them both by dropping a door, and nearly killed Sully by kicking him off a door. But then Boo stopped him, and then he got banisterized, which means he was thrown in the door and thrown over the banister. And who knows what happened to him then. So yeah, Randall Boggs is evil. The next villain is Charles Muntz from Up, and Up is one of my favourite Pixar films. I continuously watch it along with Bug's Life. We'll get to that one later, of course. Charles Muntz, this villain, at first he was a nice guy who basically invented the challenge of Paradise Falls. Kept getting confused with Parasite Falls, but it's Paradise Falls. And he had the machine with dogs, that his dogs, Alpha and Grease and all that. And Charles Muntz wanted the bird, but the other scientists thought that the bird he brought back was fake, causing him to turn evil when we next see Carl Fredricksen as an old man. And Charles Muntz saw Kevin outside their house, and kidnapped her. Yeah, Kevin's a girl's name as well, it can be. And then Russell tried to save Kevin, and Charles Muntz nearly left him to die. And then after a fight on the big ship in the air, after he got his shoe tied up to a patch of balloons, he fell into the sea to his death. He must have blacked out long before he hit the ground. So Charles Muntz is evil, not evil to the core. We'll get to those ones soon, but he is some more. Next is Ernesto de la Cruz from Coco. Now, at first, he seemed like the greatest musician of all time, and everyone fell in love with him for his music. It was beautiful to listen to. And yeah, so Ernesto de la Cruz, he wanted everything for himself, so he betrayed and murdered his best friend Hector. And then when we see him in skeleton version, like the version that you see him in, like that, when he was a skeleton and coming back, skeleton body basically, he later showed his true colours, that he was evil, and he tried to kill Miguel for exposing his crimes. But then a dragon got him, and he was defeated after getting crushed by a big bell. So Ernesto de la Cruz evil, and Miguel finds out that it's actually Hector that he should be with, not Ernesto. Next is Evelyn Deaver from The Incredibles 2. So basically, if you've seen the movie, it was basically planning to make supers illegal forever, because he blamed that for Um, basic, basically, in the first Incredibles, even though she wasn't even mentioned or made cameos, might have been the cause of supers being abandoned, and probably it could have been a plot twist. Go check out the Pixar theory to see if it is in there, what I mentioned. And wanted to kill Elastigirl, so she'd run out of oxygen. So basically, that's what Evelyn Deaver was up to. So yeah, Evelyn Deaver, on that big ship in the sea, tried as much as he could to stop her cover from getting blown, but eventually, in the end, he didn't and got arrested for her crimes. And basically, it's because husband or no father died, and that was basically why she became evil. Oh, and another thing, she's also the screenslaver, the guy in black that wanted to take control of Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible and Frozone, um, by making their eyes go blue so it would look like they were demoned. The screenslaver, the guy in black, that's her. Now we're in the Notorious. So at number 5, the fifth most evil is the most evil character in Cars. We Sir Miles Axelrod. So basically, he's the leader of all the lemons. In case you're wondering, lemons are cars that don't work right because so basically, Miles Axelrod was the one behind the race in Cars to the World Grand Prix, the one in Japan, the one in Italy, and the one in London. So he did that so that he could make, he invented All in All, which the races were ran on to make alternative fuel look bad so cars would go back to gasoline so that he and his lemon cars would be respected so they would read massive profits. So he also murdered a handful of secret agents and tried to kill Lightning McQueen and planted an activated bomb on Mater with the intention of killing him and Lightning. But eventually, it's apparent that he was the one behind all this, not exactly Professor Zundap. In fact, he was the one who took control of Zundap, Grim, Acer, and the Lemons. So, yeah, he's the fifth most evil. Next off, outside of the top 3, is Mordu from Brave. Now, this villain is, yes, he is really evil. So at first he was one of the king's 4 princes who ruled the country and who ruled the kingdom, and he wanted Mordu to not have that crown, and he felt absolutely disgraced from it, that he caused a big fight over Scotland, and then he had a spell that turned him into a bear, and oh boy, he killed his brothers in his history, and basically he was this demon bear and twisted freak and evil, and who knows what he could do. He could possibly rip you to shreds with his claws and teeth the moment he sees you. But then in the end, when the part where Eleanor is fighting him as a bear, he gets dead from crushed. So yeah, Mordu is definitely evil and the most scary one yet. Now, the bronze medal of Pixar villainy for me is Lotso from Toy Story 3. My personal favourite Pixar villain is that does not mean that he is the most evil. Um, so he rules the whole sunny side like a dictator, like he's basically Pixar's Adolf Hitler. Yeah, he seems more like it, and yeah, he's definitely one of the 3 most because he tried to kill Woody and the gang by leaving them to perish in the incinerator, and 2, he switched Buzz's mode to evil so that he could work for him, all just for that. Yeah, this guy's amazing, and he manipulates and lies to his henchmen and lies to Ken and lies to Big Baby, and has Buzz beat up his own friends and basically imprisons them like it's a concentration camp or the Holocaust. Yeah, that's what Lotso was. Because anyone who's seen the movie, if you've seen Toy Story 3, you know how evil he is. But there are two villains who are me more evil. The silver medal of evil is for Hopper. Yeah, he's super evil, and why is A Bug's Life being forgotten? That just makes no sense. I mean, it's in between Toy Story and Toy Story 2, and yeah, this villain is super evil. You can't argue with that, and yeah, he's like something like Lotso. He's a dictator, and yeah, he's one of the best villains for sure, and one of the most evil. Yeah, as much as A Bug's Life has my favourite Pixar couple, that being Flick and Atta, but that does not mean that it has my totally favourite Pixar villain. But this guy is amazing, and he basically plans to squish the Queen, has Flick beaten up, and almost kills Flick by choking him to death until that bird came to eat him and feed him to her chicks. Those chicks, weren't they adorable? So yeah, Hopper is a super evil guy. You don't want to be like him, don't you? So, is there anything nice to say about him? No. He's just a vicious and violent vermin from start to finish. And I guess we all know who the gold medal is going to. It's Zurg. No, it's not Zurg. He doesn't exactly count, and you would count if Lightyear is out, but that's not until June next year. We'll wait for that. Is it I Am the Underminer? Close, from the same franchise, but it's not the Underminer. Is it Professor Zundap? No. He's from Cars 2, and Miles Axelrod is the most evil of the Cars. But number one, you should all know who that is. So the most evil is Syndrome from The Incredibles. I'm Syndrome, your nemesis at it. Yeah, Syndrome is pure evil. At first he was Buddy Pines, and he liked to be called Incrediboy. He was Mr. Incredible's #1 fan, and he wanted to help, but Mr. Incredible just shrugged it off as, "No, I'm fine with myself. Hey, see yourself, see for yourself." And it tore me apart, as he said. And then when they re-met, when he looked like this at the volcano, I'm Syndrome. It's apparent that he was corruptive to terrorist groups and killed thousands of people in attacks and all these other stuff, and tried to kill Mr. Incredible by tying his hands and his legs to that machine. And then he has a pretty gruesome defeat when he got sucked into the plane's engine, but it's not the most gruesome. The most gruesome is Hopper, as we just looked at him. So yeah, Syndrome is the most evil Pixar villain, as for my perspective and for others' perspectives. And yeah, so who do you think is the most evil Pixar villain? Leave a comment down below, and we may find out. So this is my opinion on the 21 Pixar villains so far, evil to most evil. So this is jamie14 signing off.